Hey everyone, my name is Jamie. I work at GenoPalate in affiliate marketing. I'm sure many of you have maybe heard my name, seen my name signed off on emails, maybe even chatted with me. And we're super excited to host this webinar on our Friday afternoon. Kristen is going to run the webinar. She is our director of nutrition at GenoPalate. She's also a registered dietitian. She is your girl for anything nutrition, nutrigenomics, and everything like that. So without further ado, Kristen, you can maybe say a few words and then we can dive in. Also, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to post them in the chat, and then I can monitor that as we go.
All right, great. I'm going to share my screen. So thank you so much, Jamie, for introducing me. As Jamie mentioned, I am Dr. Kristen Rickliffs-Johnson. I am the Director of Nutrition Sciences here at GenoPalate, and I also happen to be a registered dietitian. So today is the first of what we hope to be an ongoing series for our affiliates to really dive into different areas of the reports. In the future, we would love to hear from you in regards to topics that are really pertinent to your interests and what you want to learn. But for today, we're really going to focus on the Essential Nutrition Report. So our core product, talk about the science that goes into it, what is included, different features and functionality, and then a really high level overview of how to apply it. So when you're working with your clients or you're speaking to it, you have a better understanding of where we start with our customers when we're introducing their results to them. Before we get started, I do just want to take a step back if you are not familiar with really why GenoPalate was created. Our goal is, in a nutshell, to make healthy eating easier, to make the healthy choice the easy choice, so people can eat nutritiously and we can help them through nutrition achieve their optimal health. So from GenoPalate's stance, when we're thinking health, we are not just thinking the absence of disease or illness, we're really looking at it from a holistic standpoint. We are talking about somebody who is healthy physically, mentally, and socially. And the great thing about nutrition is it plays a role in all of those. We know that nutrition has a strong link to health. We also know, and I don't think I'm telling you guys anything you don't know, that chronic diseases that have some type of nutritional component, such as diabetes or cardiovascular disease, are a growing health problem. This can be due to days lost at work, growing health costs, or mortality rates. So there have been recommended nutrient intakes that have been established to help people achieve better health. But when we look at these daily required intakes, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, we know they were created to cover really the majority of the general healthy population. And there's some segmentation, so based on age, gender, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, they may vary slightly. However, there's not a large degree of variance from individual to individual. And what we know, especially from about the last decade of research, is there's actually quite a bit of variability between individuals. So yes, genes are a component of that variance, but also other factors such as how those genes are expressed, or epigenetics, how well you are able to absorb, metabolize, your microbiome is able to produce different nutrients, what you eat, where you live, the air you breathe, your job, physical activity, these can all play a role in your nutrition requirements. So why would we recommend that genetics, which is a static pathway or a static data stream compared to all of these other ones that can change sometimes on a daily basis, why is that the place to start when we're making nutrition recommendations? In fact, it's because it is static. Unlike these other ones that can change frequently, your genes don't change. You are going to have the genes that you were born with your entire life. So it's a great place when you're really trying to tease out the misinformation that's out there in the media in regards to different diets and the conflicting information that we all have been subjected to of what is going to be best for me. Genetics are not the end all be all. Obviously, they're only a starting point, and then from there, you can start layering on other information. So I want to give a couple examples of what I mean. The first example that I want to talk about is a genetic variant that is found in the FTO gene. People who carry at least one A allele are at a greater risk to develop obesity, have higher fat mass, problems losing weight, increased abdominal girth, or a larger waist circumference. This genetic variant in particular responds to dietary protein. If you are a person who carries at least one A allele and you are on a low protein diet, you may have a harder time losing weight. You're going to have actually a larger amount of fat-free mass or lean tissue mass that could potentially be lost compared to a high protein diet. So people who have an AA genotype or an AT genotype do really well on a high protein diet. They're more likely to lose weight. They decrease their risk of obesity. On the other hand, if you are a TT genotype individual, dietary protein really doesn't make as much of a difference when it comes to weight management as if you are an A carrying allele or you carry an A allele. Another example are two genetic variants that we test for in the GenoPalate Essential Nutrition Report. Both of these genetic variants are found in the HEFI gene, and they are related to a condition called hyperhemochromatosis. This affects primarily males, mostly because women are able to get rid of iron. So this is associated with iron overload or iron toxicity in the body. So again, this is more significant in males until women hit menopause. So one of the reasons women are so good at getting rid of iron is because of menstruation every month, that we are able to get rid of iron through the menses. However, when we're talking about what does that do to dietary recommendations? So with this genetic variants or with these genetic variants, we really want to pay attention to the amount of iron in the diet. We want to make sure that somebody has moderate to moderately low levels because they are able to absorb and retain iron. So we want to focus on reducing sources of heme iron. So that's animal sources. Non-heme iron is found in plant sources. And one of the most significant changes we can make to the diet is reducing or eliminating red meat. A final example, and one that actually people are often interested in, is a genetic variant in the CYP1A2 gene and how that relates to caffeine sensitivity. So if you're a person who has at least one C allele, so either CC, CA, AC, if you consume more than 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine, it is associated with hypertension, increased risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and that equals about 2 cups of coffee. On the other hand, if your genotype is AA, reducing or consuming less than 200 milligrams a day is actually associated with adverse health outcomes. So somebody who is limiting their caffeine intake too much might actually be at increased risk of hypertension. And if they're an athlete or they're somebody who works out often, it can actually hurt their performance. So how do we find these connections? How are we determining what is significant to include into the report? So when GenoPalate is doing its large-scale literature review and really evaluating the science, we are looking for large population studies. We're looking for studies that include hundreds, if not thousands of people. We are looking for studies that are in very reputable, peer-reviewed journals. We are looking for a very well-defined gene and nutrition interaction, meaning that we want to see a cause and an effect. And we want to see this cause and effect replicated. We don't want to just rely on one study. We want to look at multiple studies and make sure that the same results are being shown over and over again, ideally across different types of populations. We also want to make sure that the health outcome that it's linked to is relevant. When you go into the Essential Nutrition Report, you will see that many of our health outcomes are metabolic traits. So we're looking at your risk of hypertension, what it's doing to HDL levels, your risk of insulin resistance. These are all things that we then can relate to these gene-nutrient interactions. On the technical side, another thing that we have to factor in is the gene array compatibility. And that is really what file types or what different chips that we are able to accept. So we have the GenoPalate kit, which you guys may be familiar with. We also accept files from 23andMe, Ancestry V1, Ancestry V2. Based upon these files, there may be some slight differences in reports due to different genetic variants being present on one file and not on another file. If you do see in your report a genetic result not read, It does not mean that you had necessarily a bad sample. It doesn't mean that the sequencing went wrong. Usually it's a quality control issue for just that genetic variant. Either when they were doing the DNA replication for sequencing, they were just not able to produce sufficient amounts, or that particular SNP or single nucleotide polymorphism was not found on that array. So in addition to the numerous metabolic benefits that we are looking for, our customers have reported numerous other health benefits, from improved mood to better sleep to improved digestion. The list goes on and on. So really the benefits expand even further than what we are really focusing on. So from this curation of the literature, when we are going through all this data, we filter this into over 100 genetic variants that are directly related to nutrition and eating. And these span across 50 different and unique metabolic pathways. In this, we are looking at 26 gene-related metabolic health outcomes, and that's presented to you in 23 nutrition recommendations, and that's filtered into one personalized food list that is really customized to you. So how do we create that food list? So we take your unique genetic profile and we run it against our food database. And we're looking for the foods that are going to best align with your genetic nutrition needs. And so essentially, we're looking for the foods that give you the most bang for your buck. So let's talk about what is included in the GenoPalate Essential Report. Now that we've talked a little bit about the science and talking about how knowing these different genetic variants can actually make a difference when you are talking about making those small modifications or even large modifications to your diet. Before we go too far, I just want to talk about the GenoPalate journey because it really is a health journey. So you all are familiar with the data collection. If you use the GenoPalate kit, it goes to our CLIA certified lab where it is sequenced, takes about 5 weeks, and then your report is delivered. If you are an existing DNA customer, meaning that you have a pre-existing DNA file, that turnaround time is much shorter since your DNA has already been sequenced. During the purchasing, especially if you are speaking to it or you're working with clients, there is also the ability to schedule one-on-one RD consultations or purchase recipes. This can be incredibly helpful for people who are really just starting on their healthy eating journey, maybe don't feel as confident in the kitchen or are looking for tips and different ways to use their optimal foods. Once you get your report, we also have a customized and targeted campaign called Activate to help you really understand your results and put your results into action. We have a complimentary group webinar to help you find everything in the report, understand how to use your report. And you are also able to order personalized supplements that are based on your unique genetic results. So when you get your report, and you log in, whether you're logging into the mobile app or into the web app, you're going to land on your homepage, and right away, you're going to see your ideal macronutrient breakdown based on your genetics. So we know macronutrients is the nutrition that gives us energy, so calories. So if you're a person that this is pretty abstract, sometimes people have a hard time or clients, if you're working with a client and that they're having a hard time saying, okay, what does this percentage actually mean when I'm applying it to my diet? I would actually recommend that you go to the mobile app, and I'll show you here in a second why, that you're able to see some different ways that data is presented. So as you dive into your macronutrients, you'll see that in the fat and the total carbohydrates, it's going to be teased out even more. You're going to get recommendations for your total fat, monosaturated fats, omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, and saturated fat. For your carbohydrates, not only do we get recommendations for your total carbohydrates, but also fiber and sugar intake. Again, so what does this look like when we're putting it into action? If you log into the mobile app, you will see that you also have the ability to toggle between percentage, calories, and grams. And this can be really helpful when you're trying to figure out how to actually put this on your plate. So you can see my results right here for my carbs. I am 50 to 58% of my daily intake should be from carbohydrates. When we're saying carbohydrates, we're not talking just breads and pastas. We're talking vegetables, fruits, leafy greens, complex carbs, legumes, beans, what have you. Protein, you can see my results are 19 to 25%. Again, we are going to give you foods that are high in protein from animal sources as well as non-animal sources. If you choose that you are on a vegan diet, you will see the majority of your protein is going to be from non-animal sources to fit your diet preferences. And then fat, we are obviously talking about healthy fats. So healthy oils, avocados, olives, what have you. To give you an idea of what my results would look like on a plate, this would be a breakdown. So this plate is about 50% carbohydrates, 25% protein, 25% fat, which is right in line with my recommendations. For micronutrients, or those nutrients that we need in minute amounts to help our body function optimally, you can go in and you can see your recommendations for different minerals, different vitamins. You can also see recommendations or your likelihood on how sensitive you are for certain sensitivities and substances. So right now we are including alcohol and caffeine. You can see what type of metabolizer you are. Like I said, for caffeine, you can go in and see if you're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer. And for your sensitivities, right now we are testing for gluten and lactose. The really nice thing about the sensitivities is if you are more likely for either one of these are going to be applied directly to your food filters. And these foods that contain these nutrient substances are going to be removed. Your food filters can be changed at any time. So your onboarding questions will also play a factor into your food preferences or into your filters. We want to make sure that your optimal food list is going to be conducive to the way that you eat. If you say you're a vegan and we're only giving you red meat options, obviously that is not going to be helpful. So we really want to make sure that we are customizing the optimal food list to meet your needs and how you eat on a day-to-day basis. And like I said, you can go in there anytime and change them. A really good example is on the onboarding. If you don't tell us that you avoid dairy or lactose, and we tell you that you're not lactose sensitive, and you say, hey, wait a second, when I am consuming dairy, I tend to get bloated, I tend to not feel well, feel nauseous. I don't think I tolerate lactose very well. When you go into your results, you can also see the non-genetic factors. So there's other medical conditions, there's other food intolerances that could present itself as lactose. You can get more information on that, medications that might be affecting you, information on what secondary lactose intolerance is. But you can also go into filters. And like I said, you can change them at any time and remove lactose from your diet. So this can be found in your top foods. Up here, you will always find the filter button. This can also be really handy if you are going on a short-term diet. So if you decide that you're going to go on the Whole30 and there's certain foods that you need to remove, you can go in here and modify it. Another feature that we just released actually last week is the uncommon food filter. So some of you may find in your results foods such as chicken liver or eel or rabbit. And you may say, Kristen, I will never eat these foods. They are not palatable. I do not like them. No way, no how. You can go in and turn on the uncommon food filters, and those foods that might be less found in the grocery store, less palatable to people, are going to be removed from your list. Another really nice feature is this export foods list. This will give you a printable PDF that will list all of your foods. This can be really handy for shopping, for menu planning, or for swapping out ingredients and recipes. So how do we tell our customers to start putting their report in action? The very first thing we usually tell people once they have reviewed the entire report is to take a beat and go back and take their time really diving in. One of the best things you can do with macronutrients is really start thinking about how you eat today and what does your plate look today? How much overlap does it have with what we are recommending? What are you willing to change? And what are those small modifications that you can start putting in today, tomorrow, next week to help you start making modifications in your diet that are sustainable? Another thing, especially with your optimal foods list, take a look at that list and look at the foods that you're already eating on a daily or at least regular basis. You can look at that list and start challenging yourself to try one new food from your list every week, or start using it to make simple swaps. An example would be if you are making chili and you often use cannelli beans or kidney beans, maybe start swapping those out with a bean like azuki beans that can show up on some people's report. So our app can be found across multiple devices. The mobile and web. However, for the most robust experience, I do encourage you to log into our mobile app. That is by far the most robust. You're going to find the most information. It is the most interactive. So when you go into our mobile app, it's very easy to scroll through. At the bottom, you're going to find additional information in the GenoPalate University. You can sign up for a free group orientation at any time. And then there also is a direct link to join our Facebook member forum, which is a really great way to get additional social support on your health journey. Before we go, there is a new product that I do want to talk about that will soon be available for you to purchase, which is our Healthy Eating Insight Report. So our Essential Nutrition Report is really focused on what to eat. This report gives you insights on why you eat the way you do. So we're talking taste preferences, we're talking your snacking tendencies, and you can really start diving into your eating behaviors. You will get an overview of what we mean for each behavior or trait. We will talk about how it actually impacts your health. What is the outcome for it? And then you will get a validation question. What we mean by this is we will ask you, what is your experience? And based on your genetic insights, plus your actual everyday experience, we can give you a customized tip that is much more relevant to making changes in your day-to-day eating habits. So I know we're running up on time, and I think we might be out of time for questions. However, I did want to put my email as well as Jamie's email up here. Please feel free to reach out to us, give us any questions that you have. And like I said at the beginning, since we want this to be an ongoing webinar, if there are any topics that you would really like to learn more about, if there's any sections of the report that you would like us to dive in even further, please let us know so we can make sure that we are really tailoring these webinars to meet your needs. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.